Welcome back, everybody, to the Legends and Champions podcast. We are joined this week on our inaugural show with the very beautiful and talented Terri Runnels. Terri, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Lee and Andy. It's wonderful to be here, and thanks for letting me also have a glass of wine and a little snack while we do this interview. I'm going to actually be having a little tidbit of food. Is that okay?
That's absolutely fine. It'll be the first Legends and Champions podcast picnic, live on air.
Perfect. If you only knew what I was wearing, you would know it's not a picnic, but that's okay.
I'm not going to talk about that on air.
Anyway. I'm fresh out of the shower, and trust me, I would not go to a picnic wearing what I'm wearing right now.
It depends what sort of picnic. Okay, obviously you're on our podcast to talk about your new project, which you can find out more, maketheworldright.com. That's WRITE. We're going to be talking about that a little bit later on in the interview. But first of all, as you're our first guest on the show, we like to look at the history of wrestling and the old school days of wrestling. You started...
You feel old when you say old school. Oh, no.
No,
okay,
you're not.
I'll deal with it. Go ahead.
There you go. Okay, you started off in WCW back in 1991. Of course, you'd worked there prior as a doing makeup and backstage. You came onto our screens as Alexandra York, of course. Now, was that launch into WCW something that was planned? I mean, were you a fan of wrestling growing up?
Growing up, the only thing I knew about wrestling was that I would love, I would want to be with my dad. My dad was one of those people that, he wasn't the greatest of fathers when it came to spending time with his kids. So my way of spending time with him was whatever he was watching on TV, I just, settled up beside him and sat there and watched. And sometimes it would be football, which I absolutely love football, which would be the American version of football. And sometimes it would be, wrestling that he would go past and stop for a few minutes. And the people I remember were the Briscoe brothers, Jack and Jerry. I remember Dusty. I remember Wahoo McDaniel. And those were, the few that I remember in the beginning. And, of course, having no idea that one day I would work for WCW, or at the time it was NWA and Jim Crockett Promotions. But anyway, yeah, that I had no plans, no ideas of going into wrestling. It just, I kind of tripped upon it, so to speak.
As Lee mentioned, you debuted in WCW by Booker Ollie Anderson. What were the feelings like for you being backstage before you made your debut in front of the crowd?
Oh, the very first night ever? Oh, butterflies aplenty, but because I've always been a bit of a ham and an entertainer in my family, I was the one who, I played piano by ear, so at every family get-together, I was always playing piano or dancing, or there were many dance recitals and many plays that I was involved with. So, doing that was very exciting, but of course, the first night, it's a scary thing. And I think if you're not, as the time progressed and as the crowds got bigger and as, you realize you have millions of people watching on live TV, the butterflies were always there, but the minute I walked out on stage, it was like they went away and I had a blast. So it was good times.
Okay, now, as we mentioned, you debuted in WCW with the gimmick of Alexandra York. Now, Alexandra York, very different from the Terri we know today. Was it difficult getting into that role of Alexandra York?
No, in fact, Ole and Tony Schiavone, Ole Anderson, Tony Schiavone, were the ones that kind of created that whole Alexandra York and Mike Rotunda when we first started with Mike Rotunda, and they kind of told me what they had in mind. I came up with the name Alexandra York because I thought it sounded pretty snotty, which I thought she was supposed to be pretty. It was just a matter of kind of thinking in my mind, okay, be as far away from what your mother taught you to be. My mother always taught me, do the right thing, be a lady, be polite, be kind, be nice. And so I just, went as far away from what my mother had taught me. And that's, Alexander York was pretty much the opposite of what my mother taught me to be, I guess.
Okay, I remember one episode, I think it was on WCW Worldwide that we were getting over here in the UK at the time. And I think coincidentally it was you're in an angle with Dustin at the time. Mm-hmm. And I remember you getting knocked off the ring apron or knocked unconscious or something like that, and Dustin having to carry you backstage. What sort of preparation did you have for being an actual physical performer as opposed to just being a manager?
Well, you're going to laugh when I tell you this. I don't even remember that. I have there are so many things like what you just said and did. There are so many times where fans will come up to you and they'll go, "Oh, remember that match back in Chicago on August the 8th in 1999 and you and so," and I'm like, "Nope. I don't remember that. I don't remember that at all." There are so many matches, and it's not that, I wasn't having a blast doing them. It's just that, it's almost like one will run into another. So it's got to be something, I guess, spectacular for me to remember it. And evidently that wasn't spectacular enough for me to remember.
Well, maybe this would be spectacular enough, because 5 years after your WCW debut, you made your appearance at the 1996 Royal Rumble as Marlena. How did it differ from your time in WCW?
Well, it was on a much grander scale, that's for sure. I knew that that good things were coming. I knew that it was a great thing that we had. The concept of Marlena, I've told the story a bazillion times. I came up with, I was laying in the tanning bed at home one day. Dustin was on the road. Dakota's a baby. She's a year old. And I really missed performing. And I was thinking about, Dustin's character and what at the time WWF needed in terms of females. And at the time there was Sherry Martel and Tammy Sitch, and Tammy was like the cheerleader and Sherry Martel was the crazy woman. And it was just not this sexy, glamorous female. There was nothing like that. So I came up with the idea, and the image I had and the visual I had was of a Barbie doll that my sister had. It was a Bob Mackie Barbie doll called Sun Goddess, and it was all gold and just really this beautiful Barbie doll. And I thought, if I came to the ring dressed, something like that every night, and it was like hearkening back to the old days of Hollywood, since Goldust was, this wonderful performer from Hollywood, supposedly. That would be a great juxtaposition to Dustin's character. So I tell him all about it, and I give him my ideas, and he's like, "That sounds awesome. Now call Vince." So I called, and Pat Patterson called me back, and they basically, told me thanks, but no thanks, politely. And then it was probably a month later, Dustin called me. I was at my grandparents' home, and he said, "Pack your bags. They want to do your idea." And the only thing that I had to really fight for, I got the clothing and the kind of the character that I wanted in terms of the clothing and the look. I got the name that I wanted, but I had to fight tooth and nail to get that cigar. And initially, if you go back and look in the very beginning, the cigar is not lit. I came out several times, and the cigar was just as bone dry as it could be. And finally, because Vince hated the smell of cigars. Don't ask me why, because he appeared on Cigar Aficionado. But anyway, he didn't want me to have it lit because he didn't want to smell it backstage. So finally, I think it was Pat Patterson or someone helped me talk him into it, and just basically said, it's senseless to, have the cigar. Long story short, he let me light it, and, the rest is history, and I had a blast doing that character. So I'm taking a bite while you guys come up with the next question, okay?
Moving a bit further away from Monday Night Raw and the Royal Rumble, you made your debut for WrestleMania at WrestleMania 12 at the Anaheim Pond in Anaheim. What was it like going out there in front of the biggest stage of your career at that point at WrestleMania 12?
Well, first of all, let me just say that my dress was smoking hot. I just have to put that out there. My dressmaker kicked butt on that one. Go back and look at it up and down. I might not have looked great, but dang if the dress did not look great. And it killed me because, Dustin and Roddy had such an incredible match, and it was all over the place. I had very little. I was involved in that match very little. And I remember thinking to myself, man, what a waste of a great dress. This I really should have been on camera more, but it was a blast. It was fun. I mean, anytime you're out in California, and they're great fans out in Anaheim. So I have to give a shout out to one of my fans that I actually met there. His name is Richie. And Richie is in a wheelchair, and he has been basically all of his life, but is one of the dearest and sweetest people, and I always associate Anaheim with Richie. So, Richie, if you're listening to the podcast, hello, babe, and I miss you. All right, guys, I'm back. I'm back with you.
Excellent. Well, Richie, I hope you're listening to this, and get in contact.
Richie actually lives in Puyallup, Washington.
Were you happy with the way the character was developed, or is there anything else you'd like to have done with the Marlena character?
I think that, well, first of all, there was an angle that we were going to do with Brian Pillman that I was so excited about. I thought it would have been a really great angle. That we used to on for flipping 6 months at a time. Now, but the angles are much shorter than they used to be. But that one was going to, after Brian had won me in the match for, he had me for 30 days, and Dustin and I were going to renew our vows in the ring. Then, we were going to do the vow renewal, and Brian was going to come down and say, I do not want her to, marry you. I'm speaking up. And they got into it. And there was going to be all this, lovely color, lots of juice, lots of blood, and all over my wedding dress that I, was going to adorn. And then I was going to go with Brian. And it was going to be a really cool angle. And it's so sad, that, first of all, that, Brian passed away. But it's disappointing and sad that we didn't get to do that angle. And instead, Dustin and Luna, we did an angle with them. But I think that I would have liked to have seen Marlena stay Marlena and go away from Goldust. Kind of say, you're weird and you're wacky, and I'm just too good and too elegant for this. And not in a snotty way, but in a, kind of a genuine, down-to-earth kind of way, and go another direction. That would have been fun. So that's the only thing I can think of, though.
Did it freak you out at all at any point? Obviously, I mean, we're speaking about the backlot brawl with Roddy Piper that Dustin had, and specifically, obviously, the ending to that match was, certainly confused a lot of wrestling fans. Did it any of the things
shopping for that outfit?
I don't even want to think about it.
Yeah, Fredericks of Hollywood, and it was in the big girl section. That's all I'll say.
Okay. What I was going to move on to was there any sort of points where you were sort of freaked out by any of the stuff that Dustin had to do, or was it weird for you watching outside the ring some of the stuff that he had to get up to?
Yeah. I mean, he was of the mindset that let's just push this as far as we can push it. And of course, then, at some point, because I think we got the ire up of, gays and lesbians, and, what they didn't realize was there was absolutely nothing against them. In fact, so many gays and lesbians ended up embracing those two characters. But because of a couple of people, I guess, not liking that, the sponsors, started boycotting that character, and they said, we won't sponsor the show if you continue to have this character be this, gay character and whatever. So we we kind of had to tone it down, which Dustin really hated that. I mean, he hated that we couldn't, push it farther. But yeah, sometimes that would get me a little freaked that he was so excited to push it so far. But it was fun.
You obviously done a lot in your WWE career following Goldust, of course, managed Edge, Christian and the Hardys. But let's move away from that. Let's talk about the next big project for you, Make the World Right competition. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
I would love to. Make the World Right. Actually, maketheworldright.com is the website, and it's WRITE, as you said before. That came about because of me wanting to sell my home. And leave Florida, and the housing market here is just atrocious. So I had actually heard of another lady doing this, and I thought, well, that's a great idea. That's a super idea. She was doing it where you would write an essay about your pet, and it was a $200 entry fee, and she had a minimum of 6,000 something entries, and I just thought, well, that's great, and I love my pets, but that's kind of just self-serving, and that's it. You don't help anybody else. It stops at you. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool and great to kind of pay it forward, as the old movie said, and do something good for other people. So I came up with the idea of doing an essay about, how I would make the world a better place, or the essay writer would make the world a better place. And then on top of that, the winner would all my home, but also $100,000 cash to hopefully put toward making the world a better place. So it was born of I guess a crappy housing market, for lack of a better term. But hopefully in the end, this will be something that's a positive, that gives back. And I want people to really think about, when they're writing it, I want them to think about, do they want to help their own home? Like I have a friend whose brother is handicapped, and she has to, he has to have round the clock care. And, maybe it's something so private as to put in wheelchair access or an elevator in a home for your own, family member that's handicapped. Or maybe it's something that you add a community center to your neighborhood, or maybe you do something with the elderly or the environment or children, or or animals. Or truly, I want people to think about any and every way that everybody has their own things that they're passionate about. I know if this is a successful contest, I know what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to tell it until this is over, but I know what I'm going to do to make the world a better place. And it has to do with one of Dakota's passions. I'm kind of using something that she loves and pairing it with something else to help other people. But I think that when I sat down and thought about the contest too, and I thought about, okay, what are the negatives? Like, are there any negatives to doing this? And truly the only negative, when you think about in a year's time, wrestling fans will spend over $200 on pay-per-views. Without blinking, they'll spend that. But in getting those pay-per-views, you don't get a 1 in 5,000 chance to win a home plus $100,000. So I think that if if the fans and the people internationally will sit down and think about what they want to do, put that on paper, it's just it's exciting. But here's another idea that I want to do too. I think a lot of times people think about things that they want to do, but they never get around to doing it.
Yeah.
I think if you put pencil to paper and you write down your goals or your aspirations or your dreams, it's a lot more likely that you do them, that they come true, that they happen. And one of the things that I also want to do is to possibly create a book from this, possibly titled Make the World Right, WRITE, and have everyone's essays in there. And, maybe that will prompt other people to act upon their own ideas and their own passions to do good for other people. So again, it's a win-win for everyone. It helps my family. It helps the family that of the winner. And another thing too, I want to throw at you guys that I don't know if I've mentioned before, but let's just say, someone in London wins my home. They can either use it as a vacation home. They can keep it as a vacation home and rent it out during the year. They can sell it. They can move over to Gainesville, Florida, and leave England. But there are lots of things that can be done with it. So the whole concept to me is just very exciting. Legally, it has to be a contest. It can't be like a lottery or whatever. But when you think about it, this is, when do you have the opportunity to have and I shouldn't say this, but a 1 in 5,000 chance of winning a home and $100,000. Very, very rare. So, and let me qualify this again and say it is a contest of skill. It is not a lottery.
Okay, it sounds like an absolutely fantastic idea, and especially in this day and age where there are so many people who have, they've done their time in the wrestling business and they come out and they're such bitter people and they haven't got anything good to say about anyone, and nothing positive ever comes out of their lives. But it's a refreshing change to see someone like yourself actually doing some good and using the obviously popularity that you've got and what you've got from the wrestling business to put back into the world, which is really good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That makes me happy. And remember my challenge for you guys when we started this interview?
Yes.
What was it?
To come up with a different question than the one we had.
Ever been asked. Ever.
That you've never been asked.
Not in any
Andy, get thinking. I'm going to ask the next one, Andy.
Oh, great.
So you think you've got the brain amongst us. Don't say that on air. Anyway, the website for maketheworldright.com is as just what we've said, maketheworldright, WRITE.com, or you can click on the link which is at the bottom of the lacpodcast.com homepage. So click on that, it will take you straight through to the website. And Terri, you've got a new personal website as well, haven't you?
I have. I used to have a paid site called therealterryrunnels.com. Now it's a free site called theterryrunnels.com, and you can go there and click on the link there. There's also a YouTube link there. But for the first time ever in my life, probably in the last 2 weeks, I have a MySpace account. So there have been 15 imposter MySpace accounts. When you go to MySpace, if it does not say Make the World Right on there, it's not me. And if you've been going, like, I go to these sites and I just laugh because one of them says I've started up a band and I've got an album coming out. And I'm thinking, if you people heard me sing, you would run for the hills. So it's such a joke that, they pretend to be me and put things up saying that they're me, but not me, just so you know.
Okay, so only the one official MySpace for Terri, and you can get the link from that, or to that, from theterryrunnels.com, so check that out. Now, I think we've both got a question for you. We're trying, we've had a bit of a short time span on this, but I think we've both come up with a question each.
Okay. Awesome.
Do you think? Andy, you do yours first.
Okay, now I'm trying to phrase this, so bear with me. You said off air, talking to Lee and myself, that
with a mouthful of food, probably.
With a mouthful of food and a glass of wine,
Yeah.
that you enjoyed hosting on a TV show.
Yes.
So my question to you is this: if you had the option to come over to the UK and host a television show, any sort of genre, and if you had to base it on you had to present it in the style of one of your wrestling characters, which character would you want to do it as?
Great question. Awesome job. First of all, I think I would love to do. Do you guys know who Rachel Ray is?
Rachel Ray. I don't know the name. No.
Well, she's a chick over in America, in the U.S. that she started out as a cook. She had a cooking show, and then it segued from the cooking show to basically an interview type show where she also cooks. Because I love cooking so much, because I love talking to people and finding out about their lives so much, I would love to do a show a la Rachel Ray type. So you'll have to Google Rachel Ray and see what I'm talking about, and check that out. But that type of show, and quite honestly, the only way that I could do it would be being plain old me. So I guess it would have to be me when I was managing and being as close to the real me as possible. So, I would say plain old Terri Runnels and doing an interview / cooking show.
That makes sense, because you couldn't have Marlena smoking in the kitchen.
No.
And you couldn't have Alexandra York with a laptop in the kitchen.
No, couldn't do
so,
that.
There you go. It makes sense. It makes sense.
So you guys get on that one for me, and I'll be over as soon as you get it lined up. And if you guys want to be the executive producers, I'll be happy to work for you.
Awesome. We'll get it moving. Okay, my question, nowhere near as exciting as Andy's. One of our former guests on our old radio show, also one of the original divas of pro wrestling, Missy Hyatt. Mm-hmm. Now, she's got a site called MissyHyatt247.com in which there's a webcam set up 24/7 in her house.
You're kidding me.
You can basically watch... No, this is absolute truth. You can watch everything she's doing from any minute of the day.
24/7?
Yeah, I think it's MissyHyatt247.com, I think, if you go to it.
Go there as you're asking me then, just so I can... This is crazy.
Okay, so basically...
Oh my goodness.
That's not a good sound.
Oh my goodness. Okay, ask the question.
Is that something that any one of your three wrestling characters, either Terry, Marlena, or Alexandra York, not necessarily yourself, but the characters, is that anything that any one of those three characters would do?
Abso-flipping-lutely not.
See, I imagine that would be something that Marlena would do.
No, and the funny thing is, now that I'm sitting here looking at this with my jaw dropped, a lot of my photographs and photo shoots were very seductive and racy, and I mean, there were many times where I covered myself with only my arm and my hands, and Dustin's hands once covered me, but I never took a nude photo, and I never would because of my child. And so one day she was in 5th grade, and she came to me and she goes, "Mommy, my friend Sarah said that she saw you naked online." And I said, "Pumpkin," and I told her, I explained to her that I had never done anything like that, nor would I ever. I said, "Come on, Mommy's going to show you the picture, the original picture, and then what they've done to the picture." And so, she realized that after, first of all, us being two girls in the house, I mean, I had no problem running around naked. So she knew what her mommy looked like. She only had to look at the picture once to go, "Yeah, that's not you, Mom." And so she realized very quickly that what photoshopping meant. And I would love to find whomever, did that little bit of photoshopping. Take this guy, make him, get a picture of him clothed, take his clothes off, have a little tiny pee-pee, and take it in his workplace. Like that would be just the best, as some sort of retaliatory measure. Can you imagine him showing up at work in his cubicle, and there he was with the world's smallest wee-wee?
Fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. I cannot say that I would ever do a Terri Runnels 24/7. Or I can say that I would never. Let me make sure I get this out right. I would never do something like that. I mean, I love Missy. She and I always got along very well. She's a sweetheart. But yeah, she does things that I would never do. So.
We were a bit shocked as well when we saw it, weren't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I have to say, I mean, it does make you curious enough to want to spend the $9.99 a month just to see what the heck is going on.
Yeah. I think we get enough of Big Brother over here for 6 months of the year, so it's fine.
You guys come up with the best. You know what? We steal so many of your ideas over here. Do you realize that?
You took Hell's Kitchen from us.
Oh, I love Gordon Ramsay. Love the man. I love him.
He's fantastic. He's doing a show over here now called The F Word. And it's a bit similar to what you were saying about Rachel Ray. It's like a cooking sort of chat show type thing. It's fantastic. If you ever get to see it, I'd really recommend it next time you're over.
Okay, awesome.
Fantastic.
We'll get busy on getting the show lined up for me, and we can decide what we want to call it.
Fantastic.
With the name of it, we'll let the fans do a little call in and give us some ideas on what my new show over in England can be.
You got a deal. We'll sort that out for you. Okay, just as we start to wind the interview down, how would you like your fans, not just in the UK but worldwide, to remember you as an in-ring or as a performer in the business?
I hope that I always entertain them, that truly, whether I was supposed to be a heel or a face, at any given moment, that they were truly entertained by what I did, and that would make me very happy. And for them to also know that they mattered to me, that especially the children mattered to me. If they were, if someone had a handicap, if someone was dying of a terminal illness and I could put a smile on their face, that was as good as it got for me. And so if they can remember me knowing that I cared about who they were as people, along with appreciating them being fans, that's what I would like to be remembered as. Geez, it sounds like I'm going to die next week. God, that's horrible.
No, it's been absolutely...
Terry, how would you like for us to remember you?
Yeah, what would you want written on your gravestone? It's one of those.
I'll tell you this, and Dakota knows this, so I've made sure that she has all of this written down. I want... If I am mangled and messed up when I die, I do not want to be seen. However, if by chance I pass away and I'm still looking good, and there's no chopped off this or whatever, I want to be in a glass casket with etchings, and I want you to be able to see the entire thing, like just. Remember the movie Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band? Oh,
yeah.
Remember the casket that Strawberry Fields was in?
Yeah.
That's what I want. So, since
awesome.
We were talking about me dying, I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Well, hopefully that's not going to happen for a very long time.
I hope not.
Terry, it's been absolutely fantastic having you on the show. Once again, www.maketheworldright.com. Check that out. Fantastic idea. And
the record, I've never had two guys call me so many times within an hour.
There you go. We've set a new world record. That's good.
Thanks for letting me also be rude and eat in your ear. And I've had a blast with you guys. Thanks for the fun.
You're absolutely welcome, and I'm sure maybe sometime down the line we'll have you on the show again to discuss all sorts of other things.
Wonderful. Let's do it. It's a date.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Terry, stay on the line as we cut the interview, but it's been great having you on the show, and we'll talk to you soon.
Hey, ciao.